Today, we're talking about self love, which is obviously a part of our mental health, a part of our wellness, and a part of our journey to joy. Have you struggled from having issues with loving yourself? And why is that? What are some reasons why we might struggle with loving ourselves? Sometimes it's low self esteem. Low self esteem may have come from an event that happened in your life, from something that someone's told you. Welcome to Journey to Joy Live. I'm your host, Dr. Enjoy, and this is episode 33, Love Yourself, where we're going to talk about self love, how you can love yourself. Do you love yourself? Do you struggle with loving yourself? Sometimes we all have those days where we just don't like ourselves, we don't love ourselves, we're finding something wrong with ourselves. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. And I'm happy to be here live. It feels like it's been a minute since I've been live, about 3 weeks ago, but I've been having these awesome guests on the podcast, which I'm very proud of. When I think of February, of course, February is Black History Month. Also, when I think of February, I think of love and relationships, probably because of Valentine's Day. So, of course, the main focus this month for Journey to Joy Live is about love, because part of our journey to joy is loving yourself, loving others, having connected relationships, healthy relationships. And if you caught 2 weeks ago, the first thing that we talked about was sex. So you want to catch that. Dr. Ashley Towns was my guest. She is a sexual health researcher, and we were talking about all things sex, all things sex. So if you can think of it, you can name it. That is what we talked about. So if you missed it, you want to go back and watch that. And then last week, of course, I had the lovely Ask the Martins, Takara and Kenyon Martin, who are relationship experts, along with my husband, Juan Minna. And we were just chatting about relationships and how to have strong marriage. Today, we're talking about self love, as I mentioned. And next week, I'll have some guests on again. So, anytime I have the guests, those tend to be pre recorded to allow flexibility with when I can record with my guests. Not everybody is available at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, so pre recorded. So, we'll continue the conversation about dating and love. That title is Stressless Love. And if you notice, I've been posting a lot of Black history related posts, which can be alarming depending on if you knew those things about those legendary civil rights or Black History Month individuals. There's a lot of people who suffer from mental illness, and I've been posting about that pretty much every other day, if not every day. So I'm going to I'm going to accumulate that, if I said that word right, at the end on February 29th, where we get into the history of mental health in Black history. Mental health in Black History Month. That's pretty much better how I say it. But yeah, it's interesting. And that's just really to increase awareness about mental health in Blacks. We need to break down this stigma. And so, me showing you different posts about the different famous individuals who have suffered from mental illness, that's a part of that. Just showing you a lot of us suffer from mental illness, and that's okay. It's just a matter of getting the word out there, understanding how we can recognize the signs and getting treatment, because most of the effects from mental illness can be treated. All right, well, I'll get into that in a couple weeks. Today, we're talking about self love, which is obviously a part of our mental health, a part of our wellness, and a part of our journey to joy. Have you struggled from having issues with loving yourself? And why is that? What are some reasons why we might struggle with loving ourselves? Sometimes it's low self esteem. Low self esteem may have come from an event that happened in your life, from something that someone's told you, from the way you were raised, maybe the way parents may have spoken to you, or friends may have spoken to you, or the lack of a relationship may make someone's self esteem low, or a relationship, being in a relationship may make your self-esteem low. If you're in a toxic relationship, an abusive relationship, there are a lot of different reasons why someone may have low self-esteem, and having that low self-esteem is followed by consistent negative self-talk and that lack of confidence. And it makes it difficult for you to practice that self-love and to practice that self-worth when you're talking so negatively about yourself. You low self-esteem and you don't care about yourself, then you're saying negative things. I always like to say that before you say something negative about yourself, think about, would you say that to your 3-year-old self? Would you say that to somebody else? Like, let's say that negative thought that you might have is, you're so ugly. Would you say that to a 3-year-old? No. Would you say that to anybody else? If you would say that to anybody else, then I guess that's something else we need to talk about, because why are you so negative to other people? But for the most part, most of us, it's hard for us to talk down to other people. So why is it okay to talk about yourself, to talk negatively to yourself? You are the first person that you should love, and you are the first person that you should build up. Because if you're not building yourself up and loving yourself, how are you going to be there for others and build them up? If you want to be in a relationship, you have to be built up and have that self love in order to be there for that spouse and for your spouse, or else you're going to be looking for them to love you to the points where you can't even be loved, because you have to love yourself in order to embrace all the love that they have. Or those days where you don't feel loved by them, loving yourself helps with that. And I'll get into that a little bit later, as far as how the lack of self love or having self love can affect relationships. So obviously it does. Other reasons why someone may have difficulty practicing self love is past traumas. So it goes along with how someone may have talked about you poorly, and that repeated cycle gets to your self esteem and makes you feel worthless. Any type of trauma, abuse, neglect, that can lead to feelings of unworthiness, which affects your ability to practice self love. A lack of self love could also come from perfectionism, setting unrealistically high standards for yourself, or equating that your self worth has to do with you achieving something. That can definitely hinder self love. If you feel like, oh, I need to make all A's and then I'm worth it. You know what? I have that perfect example, because I was just fine in high school when it came to me trying to become a doctor. I made all A's and I was just like, oh, yeah, I can be a doctor. But then when I got to college, I started making a couple D's, a D in biology, a D in biopsychology. I'm like, how am I going to get a D in my major? My major was biopsychology. And then biology is a prerequisite to medical school. So I equated that to, I'm not worthy for medical school. I can't go to medical school. Why am I making D's? And so I continued to talk down about myself. But then I realized it's really not about that D that gave me the worth. So I turned that around and I reframed that, and I says, you know what, I am worth it. I can go to medical school. That's a longer story. There's more details that I'm skipping. But that's the thing, that we think that some minor setback leads to us not being worthy of that achievement that we need to meet. So therefore, feeling like we need to be perfect, making honors, making all A's, that framework can set us up to not be loving to ourselves when we make a mistake or when we aren't perfect, because we're not perfect at all. So those failures and setbacks, try not to internalize that so negatively. Internalize it as an opportunity to grow or as a challenge to be better. Failures are good. It's just a stepping stone towards success. Comparing ourselves to others, that is a hindrance to self love. We're always comparing ourselves to somebody else, unless it's healthy competition. I have a friend of mine, we do very healthy competition. If she's doing something and getting into some type of challenge, it's usually a workout challenge, and I feel like, oh, I got to do that too. Oh, let me be better. And I have another friend who ran 100 half marathons. And so I says, well, I got to run 100 half marathons. So it's not about me feeling like I'm comparing myself to her to the point where, oh, I suck. I didn't run 100 half marathons. I'm not worthy of that. It's a different framework where you say, ooh, I can do that too. Let me do it. And I do it on my own time. You see how that's different? So if you compare yourselves and make it like a healthy competition and make it an inspiration when you compare yourselves to the person, then that's good. They're inspiring you and it's motivating you to be better rather than comparing yourselves and thinking about what you lack and what you can't do and what you're not doing. So if you're not thinking so negatively and thinking about it as some kind of void, then it helps you to practice self-love. Looking at social media, societal pressures, that leads to us comparing ourselves unfavorably with others. And it definitely undermines our self esteem and our ability to appreciate our own unique equalities because there really is no other person like you. Even if you have a twin, that person isn't you. Having guilt or shame for whatever reason, that can cause an inability to practice self love. Feelings of guilt and shame, possibly stemming from past mistakes or societal judgment, can prevent individuals from believing they deserve love and kindness. Let's say if you did something wrong, you ended up in jail, you ended up in prison, now you're out, and then you just feel like you're just guilty or shamed. You can't get a job, or the only job you can get is waiting tables, and you're just letting that shame just ride on you. Well, you already did your time. So don't continue to let yourself melt in that guilt. There is a way to turn that around by first practicing self-love. But there are definitely organizations out there that get people off their feet when they've gotten out of jail. But that's just one example. But there's a lot of times where we might, because of our past or what we may have done, where we just ride this guilt and that shame. And it's counterintuitive to loving ourselves and being able to achieve those dreams and those things that we've been desiring to achieve to get our potential. Having a lack of role models can be counterproductive with self-love. If you don't have anyone to look up to, you've grown up without positive role models for self-love and self-care. Like I said earlier, you've had parents who may have talked down about you, um, or role models. Yeah, they're not really a role model, but someone that you looked up to that talked down about you, or an advisor, or a school counselor who said, "Oh, you'll never get to college, or you'll never do that." Those are definitely reasons why someone might have struggled with practicing self love. It makes it difficult to learn how to value and nurture yourself when no one else is doing that or hasn't done that. So that makes sense. That makes sense. And of course, mental health challenges can get in the way of us practicing self love. Depression, in and of itself, that is when someone has low self esteem, doesn't like themselves, doesn't like their life, or don't want to live. Anxiety can make it difficult to practice self love or any other mental health issue. Someone who may have psychosis and are hearing voices or intrusive thoughts that are literally telling them they suck or you aren't capable of living or living up to anything or doing anything in life. People struggle with actually hearing voices telling them that they can't turn off. And that gets in the way of practicing self-love. It can profoundly affect your self-perception and ability to engage in self-love practices. There's some cultural and societal beliefs that might get in the way of practicing self-love. So there's some cultural norms or societal expectations that you might feel like prioritizing or self-sacrificing or being more humble over self-care or over self-compassion may make you feel like, okay, no, I can't practice self-love. I'm supposed to be there for everybody else first and then take care of myself. Or some type of societal belief that it's selfish to practice self-love or that it's self-indulgent. I talked about that when we talked about self-care a while back, that That was one of the misconceptions or the myths about self-care, is that it's selfish. It has the word self in it, but that's because it's for you. You have to care for yourself. You have to love yourself in order to be able to be there for others. The fear of being selfish can get in the way of practicing self-love. So it goes with what I just finished saying, that the misunderstanding self-love as selfishness can deter people from prioritizing their well-being and happiness. It's not selfish. You need to love yourself, because if nobody else does and you don't either, then who's going to love you? You have to love yourself, because you're the only one that's going to be with you 100% of the time, 24/7, from the beginning of your life to the end of your life. So if all things fail, you need to be there for you, to love you, and it is not selfish. Busy lifestyles might get in the way of loving yourself. You just don't have time to set aside time for yourself. Everything's just busy, 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 fast, fast, fast. Prioritizing work, prioritizing family, other obligations over your own needs, and leaving little time for self reflection and self care. We really need to take time out for ourselves. I've been looking at different books that talk about joy, and a lot of those books that talk about joy talk about putting yourself first and setting yourself aside in the beginning of the day. Whether it's waking up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever you do it for you first in the beginning of the day. And then you've already set aside that self reflection for yourself and poured into yourself before trying to pour into anybody else, because you have to pour into yourself so you can have something to pour out to other people. And we talked about that. Dr. RJ was on in January when we talked about burnout. And she said the first 15 minutes of your day should be pouring into yourself and not looking at your phone. So I think we know what self love is, but in case you don't know, it's understanding yourself, accepting yourself, appreciating yourself, and recognizing your worth, that you have worth, and that you're worth good things in life, that you're worth having joy, and that you deserve having peace, rest, a balanced meal, exercise, time for yourself. And self love is taking action that supports your physical, psychological, and emotional growth. Whatever that is. Is it getting that massage? Is it getting a nap, a power nap in between appointments? Whatever it is that you need, it's taking that time out for yourself. So it goes beyond just the mere self care routines or indulgences. It's not an indulgent, but it's cultivating a deep, nurturing relationship with yourself. Being able to be alone, being able to be with your thoughts. A lot of people talk about they can't be alone with their thoughts because their thoughts are so negative, or they have the racing thoughts, or the constant overthinking and constant anxiety. So it's hard for them to be by themselves. And so that's why they're always being with someone else, because they can't be alone. If you're that person, therapy can help. But I recommend you strive towards spending more time with you. Date you. Go on a date with yourself. Go by yourself somewhere and expose yourself to your thoughts. Write the thoughts down if it's so jumbled up and cycling around where, or racing thoughts where you can't organize them. Write them down. Think about your moods. Think about how the thoughts are making you feel. And you'll start to understand your thoughts and what they're saying, and start to love being with yourself. So, self love means acknowledging your needs, allowing yourself to meet your needs, and setting healthy boundaries, like saying no, not saying yes all the time, or being that people pleaser. Forgiving yourself for mistakes. A lot of times when we've done something wrong, we the main ones that didn't forgive ourselves, and the person we did wrong, they forgave us. So why are you not going to forgive yourself? You in your own way, because you're not forgiving yourself. So it involves speaking to yourself with kindness and compassion, just as you would someone else you love deeply. Just why you have to love yourself in order to do this. Just like I've talked about joy being a choice, love is a choice. So you can't say, well, I just don't feel like I love myself, or I just don't feel like I love that person. It's a choice. You choose to enter that journey towards joy. You choose to enter into that journey towards self love. So true self love requires your ability to understand your true desires and values and beliefs, aligning your life accordingly. Like I said, you with yourself 24/7 from the beginning to the end of your life. You might as well understand yourself and what you really want and what you want to get out of this life. So there's a reason you're here. Give yourself permission to be who you are unapologetically and pursue your dreams. Embrace that journey. It's your journey, not anybody else's, including the setbacks and challenges. I embrace my challenges. I embrace my setbacks. I mean, I get happy when there's a challenge because then I feel like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn. Yay, this is going to build me up. Because when things come easy, you're not learning anything. I was just thinking that right now. In fact, I hear the toddler crying, screaming right now as I speak. But literally right before this, I was just thinking, well, if parenting was easy, then I wouldn't grow from it. But since parenting is not easy and it's a challenge, I grow from it and I learn patience. I'm not going to learn patience by dealing with someone who's easy to be patient with. I learn patience by dealing with someone who's hard to be patient with. That includes my toddler. But that's why I have that segment, Joyful Parenting. I have a new Joyful Parenting reel coming up, don't worry. But yes, yes, in essence, basically, self love is a foundation upon which we build a life that feels fulfilling and joyful. Because at the end of the day, we want to experience joy and we want to embrace our authentic selves and be able to be who you are. Because if somebody else don't like you, well, you must be doing something right. What's that phrase about if you got haters, it's because you're doing something right? Fine. You don't have to not like everything I do, but loving myself, I don't care what you think, right? So that's the attitude to have. Now, what are some steps that you can do to build your self love? We talked about what some obstacles to self love is, and I just finished talking about how we can understand self love and what is it. So, what can we do? Magically, it's everything that I've been talking about throughout this whole 7 months about our journey to joy. Positive affirmations. Literally, that's the number one thing I talk about in as far as therapeutic aspects when I talk to my patients, when I'm on here, to my husband, to my kids. I am always promoting positive affirmations because when you don't talk nicely to yourself, when you talk negatively, that works. That makes you feel sad and it makes you feel bad and it puts you down and it will lower your self esteem. So, if you want it to do that, it will work. But positive thoughts, loving yourself also works. It makes you feel better. I am worthy of love and respect. If you're listening, say that right now. I am worthy of love and respect. That feels good. I am capable of achieving my goals. I accept myself unconditionally. So I'm not relying on something that I've done right in order to love myself. I just love myself unconditionally. Say that and say it with a smile. Better yet, say it while looking in the mirror. Because sometimes it's hard to even look ourselves in the eyes because we don't like the way we look. You're beautiful. You're handsome. Say that to yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's what you think about beauty and how you feel about yourself. Of course, self care routines, prioritizing activities that nourish your body, mind, and soul help with you loving yourself. If you pour into yourself, like I said, you are going to love yourself more. A relaxing bath, nature walk, reading, engaging in new hobby or any type of hobby that you enjoy, watching Netflix or watching movies, whatever you enjoy, and watching something that you want to watch. I know for me, I prioritize the boys in my house. I'm surrounded by boys. If my husband wants to watch something on TV, I let him watch it. If the kids want to, I do. So it's not even until they're out of the house that I say, "Ooh, what do I want to watch?" Because I decide. But I mean, that doesn't affect me. Yay, you said it. I am worthy of love and respect. Great job. I see you watching wine. Yes, I let you watch TV first. Anyhow, but I do my self care any other time. So maybe there's some things where obviously you prioritize your spouse over, or you do prioritize your kids over, and maybe not everything is 100% you first. That's fine. But when it comes to my running that I might want to do, or signing up for a race, I prioritize that and I say, okay, I'm going to do that. So find out what it is that you need to do no matter what, where you put yourself first. And getting back to the boundary setting, learning to say no without feeling guilty. I can do that sometimes. I realize that I can be a people pleaser and I want to make people happy, but I need to think about how that might be affecting me. You need to think about how saying yes all the time might be affecting you and not feel guilty because you don't want to spread yourself too thin. So, setting healthy boundaries is crucial for maintaining emotional well being, and it helps manage others' expectations and allows you to honor your needs and feelings. I mentioned journaling, so reflecting on your thoughts and feelings through writing, thinking about those thoughts, and not even judging yourself for what you're writing. You can write negative things, you can write positive things, you can write whatever. And of course, put the journal in a safe space. You can have an electronic journal, you can have a journal that's written, but something where you can discover who you are. That self discovery helps you understand your emotions, your patterns, and what truly makes you happy. So, journaling, boundary setting, positive affirmations, self care routines. Lastly, mindfulness and meditation. That helps with practicing self love. So, going on YouTube, there's a lot of different meditation videos on YouTube. There's the gentle ones that are just like, close your eyes and think about walking on a beach and you smell the water and you hear the waves and you see the waves. And then there's the really intense ones that yell at you and cuss at you, and some people are really motivated by that. I like the stronger ones when I'm about to go for a run, but then I like the more softer ones if I'm gonna go to sleep or other times. So there's a lot. There's some for kids, adults, anybody. Now, if you find that at the end of the day, these mindfulness routines that you have, or these journaling, I tried the boundary setting, I still can't say no. I can't find time for self-care routines. I'm just so negative about myself. I just can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. There's a role in therapy in supporting and fostering your self-love. That is what therapy is all about. Helping you love yourself, helping you get your wellness back and your joy back. So if you need professional guidance or support groups or educational workshops that you can attend, or joining Journey to Joy live every Thursday, then that can help you. Or if you are a Georgia resident and you want to come see me for therapy guidance or medication management, if it's needed, that's okay. You can come see me. DrEnjoyLife.com. I'm accepting patients. Out of pocket, but I will be accepting Aetna patients starting on the 21st of February. Yes, I'm plugging myself. But lastly, let me get into transforming relationships through self love. Because I said earlier, I was going to circle it back to relationships, because when you love yourself, that helps you have healthier, more fulfilling relationships in all areas of your life. Relationships at work, relationships at home, whatever that relationship might be. When you have self love, you get the standard, you set the standard for how you expect to be treated by others. You being confident, not letting people walk over you, you having that self worth and self respect, that makes people feel that way about you as well. When they see someone walk into the room, they're really assertive and confident. They're like, ooh, whoa. And So, unfortunately, you might hear someone who's had a lot of trauma, who's experienced a lot of trauma, and they continue to experience that trauma over and over and over again. Unfortunately, they've developed an inability to practice self love, and they don't have self respect, and they don't have self worth. So, therefore, they fall into those situations where it continues to happen. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm just saying this is the pattern when you don't love yourself. And unfortunately, trauma is definitely a risk for it, or something that could happen before. As I mentioned before, trauma being one of the things. But that is why professional guidance, therapy is so important, so that you can get out of that cycle. Because as I mentioned before on another episode, in obstacles overcoming obstacles to joy, trauma was one of them. It's an obstacle to it can be an obstacle to joy, but it doesn't mean that just because you've experienced trauma that you can't experience joy or love. You can, and it starts with your mind. All right, getting back to the relationship. So self-love, as far as romantic relationships, self-love can influence romantic relationships hugely, hugely. So when you value yourself and you're more likely to enter relationships for the right reasons, you're not just getting into it because you're lonely or because you're insecure. You understand your self worth. You understand your worth, making it easier to establish and maintain healthy boundaries in relationships. So you have the healthy boundaries in relationship. You're secure. This self assurance attracts partners who respect and value. Just what I was just saying. When you don't have that self worth, then that person thinks you're not worthy. When you don't respect yourself, then that person don't respect you. You see this? You see the pattern how it goes? So it creates a balanced and supportive dynamic between you and your romantic partner. Family relationships. Self-love influences romantic relationships, and it also influences the familial relationships, those family bonds. It allows you to forgive and accept family members for who they are. Ooh. Recognizing that your self worth isn't tied to their opinions and approval. So, having this perspective enables you to interact with your family from a place of love rather than obligation, resentment, and it improves communication and understanding. Just from you loving yourself does all of that. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to resent them. You're not going to blame them for things. You're going to come from a place of love because you first loved yourself. Our friendships, self love helps our friendships. It can be transforming too. By knowing and loving yourself, you choose friends who truly compliment and uplift you and who you are. And you're able to engage in friendships that are reciprocal, meaning they're giving you love, you giving them love, and it's deeply meaningful rather than those based off of convenience or shared history of being alone. You also become a better friend as your increased happiness and confidence can radiate outward towards them. They're like, "Who's this? I want to be around them." Ooh, she loves herself. She feeling herself. Not a overconfident thing, and not a conceited thing. It's not that. I'm not conceited. I'm confident. Yeah. And then just not caring what people think about you. All right, all right. We've reached the end here. I can just keep talking and talking, but try to keep these under 40 minutes. Thank you for listening. We talked about self love, love yourself. So, if anything, at the end of the day, what my friend here said, I am worthy of love and respect. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your week.